Okay. You see, Jesus didn't say, if you live in me and my words live in you, just ask God whatever you want and maybe you'll get it. No. It's the same thing we just read in Mark. Okay, let's drop down a little bit more. I'm going to read just the top of verse 10 and the top of verse 12. If you keep my commandments, that's verse 10, verse 12, and this is my commandment. Now, if you'll keep my commandment, you can live in me, and this is my commandment. Here it is again. That you love one another just like I love you. Well, that just pretty much got rid of most of you. Here's my commandment, that you love other people the same way I loved you. Well, how did he love you? Unconditionally, when you were a heathen. When you were a street-walking, pole-dancing crackhead. All the people who are falling through all the cracks of society, I mean, as bad as you can imagine. You love them? Oh, no. Be honest with yourself. If you'll keep my commandments, you live in me, my love. And this is my commandment. Here it comes. That you love one another just like I love you. Greater love has no one than this. Greater love, there is no greater love than this, what I'm about to tell you. Ready? Lay down your life for your friends. Now the word friends there, again, paints the wrong picture. There's no greater love than laying down your life. What he's saying is, the same way I lay down my life for you. There is no greater love than that. I think I should just kind of let that settle in for a minute. Most religious people will tell brother and sister in church that they love them. But really that's contingent upon how they're living and what they're doing. Okay. I'm not being condemning here. I'm just saying you're really not loving people the same way he did. Drop down to verse 17. This is my commandment, that you love one another. That used to be the beginning of a Keith Green song, didn't it? This is my commandment, that you love one another. That your joy may be full. You can sing that one. Well, do you want to follow Jesus' commandments? Do you? Here it is. Love one another. Yeah, well, they're being a bunch of jerks. I'm glad he didn't give you a bunch of exceptions. This is my commandment, that you love one another. Now, if the world hates you, guess what? It hated me first. If the world hates you, know this. It hated me before it hated you. If you were of this world, the world would love its own. It's not that this is hard to explain. This is just one of those things that most people don't even allow into their consciousness. I mean, these are not deep, fathomable things that, oh, it's too deep to understand. No, they're really simple to understand. The problem is most of you so-called believers won't do it. If the world hates you, it hated me first. But if you were of the world would love its own. If you are consistently if nobody ever hates you, here we go. If you go to school wearing your Jesus t-shirts, you got Jesus stickers all over your car, and you tell everybody at work you're a Christian, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much as far as you go. And all of society never persecutes you. Nobody ever really hates you. You know why? It's probably very accurate. You know why you can live a life where nobody out in society ever persecutes you or hates you? Because you're basically living along with the world. You're keeping society happy. If you consistently make society happy, you'll never get any persecution. Jesus got persecution. Jesus got a lot of hatred. But he wasn't trying to start that. He wasn't trying to stir up strife and cause problems. He was just living the truth. He was just living the truth. Remember now, if you call yourself a believer, you're supposed to be living according to walking the same way he walked. Did he have people hate him? Yes. Did he get persecution? Religious persecution? Yes. Do you say you're in him? Yes. Then you ought to be walking the same manner that he walked. Okay, well now, Keith, it's getting a little sticky, because if I walk the same way he walked, I'd probably get a little hatred. I'd probably get a little persecution. And so to avoid any public persecution or friendship hatred or any problems like that, I don't think I'll walk the same way Jesus did. I think I'll modify it a little bit. I think I'll water it down a little bit. I think I'll make it a little more sweet. And in that way, I won't really just walk in. I believe in Jesus, but I'm not going to walk my life the same way he did, because I don't want anybody to hate me. I don't want any society persecution. I'd rather avoid all that. So I think I'm going to water down this walking the same way he walked a little bit. I hope that shoe fits somebody. I've said this 100 times. One of my very last comatose conversations when I was with Jesus, before I came back into this body, when I told him that I wanted to go back to my family and my ministry. One of the last things he told me before he said, wake up, was, Keith, don't ever base what you're saying in the ministry on trying to hurt people or offend them. And I said, yes, sir. And all of you right now will say, yes, sir. He says, fill in the blank with your name. Fill in the blank. Don't ever base what you're saying as my representative in trying to hurt people or offend them. Every one of you will say, yes, sir. But he didn't stop there for me. He said, Keith, and don't base what you're saying in ministry trying to please people. That may put a stick in your spokes, because a lot of you watching this or listening to this who call yourselves believers, who I guess I live in him, you know what you're doing? You are basing what you say. You're watering down what you say. You're sweetening up what you say to try to please people. Because you don't ever want to say something that might get you a little bit of society hatred or a little religious persecution. You'd rather sweeten it up. He told me, don't ever condemn people and don't ever try to please them. Listen to me. He said, Keith, speak the truth in love. Period. And whatever people do with that, Keith, that's between me and them. Basically, that's none of your business. That ought to be your attitude. Don't be an angry preacher at work. Some snob who dresses high and above everybody else and won't even speak to people and won't even go to lunch with them somewhere. Because you're too good, you're too religious, you're too snotty to go have lunch with them somewhere. Don't be like that. Don't be somebody who you want to take your representation of Jesus and use it in a way that makes you higher and above people, to where you could be hurting their feelings or condemning them or trying to inject a little bit of guilt and condemnation. And don't do that. Turn the page. Quit letting everybody know that you're a Christian, but then you water it down, sweeten it up, to where you'll make sure that you go out of your way where nobody could ever come back and say anything bad about you. Because one is just as bad as the other. Live right in the middle. Just like Jesus did. Walk in the manner that he walked. He never said, I'm going to plan my sermon today to try to hurt people. And he never said, I'm going to plan my sermon today to just kiss everybody's rear ends and make them all happy so they'll give me more money. And they'll all be my friends. Because I can't live without friends. He didn't do either one of those. He didn't base what he said trying to hurt people or base what he said trying to make them happy. He spoke the truth. And that's what you ought to do. Speak the truth.